What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some University of Oklahoma wide receiver versus DB one-on-one. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you struggle with knowing what to do in the gym to help your on-field performance, it's not about getting bigger. It's not necessarily just about working on your speed. What's going to help you as a wide receiver specifically? Check out that very first link in the description below for our 16-week wide receiver gym workout plan. It's a 4-month daily schedule that you can follow with the exact exercises, sets, and reps to do for a wide receiver for performance in the gym. So check out that very first link below if you're interested, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So this first route here is going to be a 10-yard out route versus this kind of outside leverage catch technique right here, okay? So now, one-on-ones, we're approaching that season where everybody's going to college camps, everybody's going to camps in general, and you're going to be doing a lot of one-on-ones. The most important thing that I want to tell to you guys is that you want to keep things realistic. We cannot force routes. We cannot make routes unrealistic to a game situation because that's how I'm not going to get better. And that's not something that's going to stand out to a college coach. We got to keep things realistic. So that's what I want you to keep in mind throughout this entire video. So now, first things first here, he's running a 10-yard out outside leverage. So obviously this route gets locked up, pick six probably if this is a real game scenario. Why is that? There are a lot of things that this wide receiver could do better on this rep, and that's what we're going to break down. So when we got outside leverage coverage, number one thing as a wide receiver, when you're approaching the line, you got to have a plan. You got to understand, and what do I mean by that? Because everybody says, oh, you come up to the line, you got to have a plan. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean by plan? What is my plan? Number one, you got to identify the coverage of the DB. You got to identify the leverage of the DB and how close or how far he is lined up. So obviously it's one-on-ones. It's man. That's pretty simple. What's his leverage? He's shaded to the outside of you, so that means that he has outside leverage. Can he disguise his leverage? Can he jump inside after the snap? Absolutely. But pre-snap, it looks like he is outside leverage. And now he's got maybe about 2 yards to 3 yards of space between the two of us. So that tells me three specific things. Number one, it's man. So it's man to man. His eyes are on my hips. Number two, outside leverage, he's trying to take away the outside. And number three, he's in catch technique. So there is kind of a gap between the two of us. So if I have to run a 10-yard out, that's a route that goes towards the DB's leverage. Now, listen, I know this seems like a lot to think about. You're thinking, how am I going to think about all of this in 10 seconds? And that's why reps are super important for you wide receivers out there. You got to constantly watch film. You should know your opponent better than they know themselves. So when you come into a game and you see this look, it's automatic, this is what I'm doing. So if I have to run a 10-yard route, or a 10-yard out, that is a route that is to the leverage of the DB. He's outside leverage, so that route's going right to his leverage. So what this wide receiver does is he closes the space with this DB first. That's a good thing. That's exactly what you want to do. Anytime that you have that cushion, and we can tell that there's a cushion based on that pre-snap checklist, you want to close the cushion. You never want to try to make a move with a big gap between the DB. Even if we're taking an inside release, even if we're taking an outside release, anytime there's a gap, that gives the DB a good angle to recover. So anytime that we have space, let's close the space and let's try to step onto the DB's toes. But now, here's the problem that this wide receiver did. He forces the outside release. This is one of the common mistakes that wide receivers will do in one-on-ones when they have outside breaking routes. If they have an outside breaking route, they think automatically, I have to take an outside release. Now, listen, ideally, I would love an outside release. I'd love an outside release on a fade, a comeback, an out, a corner, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. That's why the DB's lined up that way. So many guys in one-on-ones will come down and they'll cut their split down like so. You see the hash mark right here. They'll cut their split down. Now, a DB would be smart to play outside leverage when you cut your split down, is you're probably doing that to run an outside route. So if we try to force the outside release, because remember, when he's outside leverage, and we know this based on my pre-snap checklist, he's trying to take away the outside. So if I force it, he ain't going to give it up. That's his sole responsibility. Force everything to the inside. Because in a real game, he's probably going to have help there. And if you run a post route and catch it on the opposite hash in one-on-ones, that's not realistic. Just like what I was saying earlier in this video, keep things realistic. That's not going to impress anybody. So what we should have done here is taken an inside release. He should have closed the space like he did, but threatened the outside. Let's fake to the outside. Let's actually attack his leverage to maybe move him and take the inside release. You hear guys like Ocho Cinco talk about it. I've heard a lot of wide receivers talk about it. You got to be comfortable taking an inside release or an outside release on any given route. I don't care if it's a fade, a comeback. You got to be comfortable with it. You have to know both ways to run it. So he should have closed the space, attacked outside, and taken the inside release and tried to work to do something called stack. That is where maybe you dip the shoulder, you get skinny, and you try to get this DB trailing your back hip. Now, everybody's biggest fear when they do that is, oh, well, what if I attack his leverage? And you see how far he's going to move if you attack his leverage. That's a free inside release. Well, what if he's right on my hip and I got to run an out route? You got to always have a plan, like we said, and it's got to be a reaction. He's on your hip. Maybe we do this throw by move. Maybe we take my inside arm, I swat him by, and I slip underneath. But we cannot force the release, fellas. That is the quickest way to get locked up, when you force a route to the leverage of the DB. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Again, I like that he's trying to work to the outside. I like that he's trying to hand fight. But when you force that outside release, the DB will not give it up. He'll be right on your hip, and he is going to squeeze you to that sideline. Take what the DB gives us, so we give the quarterback more room and more space to operate. Okay, so now, next example here, this is going to be a dig route, and this is against, obviously, inside shade, off-man coverage. So let's play this full speed. DB ends up locking up this route as well. And this is an easy fix from the wide receiver here. You see how wide receiver doesn't end up with the ball. I don't know if it was a pick or not because the clip cuts out, but we don't end up with the ball, and the DB's right there. So it's probably something we did. As a wide receiver, we never want to have the attitude of, well, what if the DB takes it away? Like, what if he plays it well? No, my mindset as a wide receiver needs to be, what did I do wrong to put him in a position to make a play on the ball? Because DB is such a challenging position. They are guessing every single snap. They are guessing. They have no idea what we are doing. They like to think they do, but they don't. So that's why it's so hard. And if we give away my routes, that is what makes a DB look really good. So let's talk about the scenario here. Pre-snap, what was our process? We got to identify the coverage. So we know it's man. It's one-on-ones, right? His eyes are on me. Number two, it's inside leverage because he's shaded to the inside of us, so he's trying to take away the inside route. More importantly, the dig in the post. And a dig is what I am running here. And then last but not least, he's about 7 yards away from me. So it's off man, inside leverage, man coverage. So if I'm running a dig, we need to understand, remember, why is the DB inside shade? To take away the dig. So as a wide receiver, what a lot of guys will do is they'll just angle their stem to the inside and try to step on the toes of the DB, hoping that he just starts to backpedal. But he's not going to backpedal. He's going to do something called weave. So what's a weave? A weave is where you keep your leverage. So let's say you stem to the inside. His sole responsibility is don't give up that inside. So what he's going to do is he's going to weave to the inside. It's almost like an angled backpedal. So if you try to run that dig, you're still going to run right into him. Yeah, he's giving up more space to the outside, but he's not giving away the inside, which is his whole purpose in this coverage. So what we have to do here is we have to attack his outside shoulder and his outside hip. And that's what this wide receiver does. He does such a great job of coming off the ball. He's running with speed, but right before he makes that cut, you see how his hips and his shoulders start to turn down the angle of the break. That is what we call cheating the route. So many wide receivers, they want to get out of the breaks fast. They want to snap their head around to the ball, and again, like sometimes on out routes, you can round the break if it's like a speed out, I guess you could say. But in this scenario, fellas, you got to keep your hips and shoulders committed to that fade as long as possible. So many guys, DBs, again, what coverage was it that we identified? It's man, right? So in man, where's the DB's eyes supposed to be? On our hips. So if our hips are committed to the fade, that's more likely to get him to start backpedaling or maybe even open up. But when my hips turn to the break, that lets him know exactly where that break point is. So if this wide receiver could have stayed vertical, maybe a step longer, committed to it, ran hard just like he did, we could have gotten more separation. And to be able to cut on a dime like that with your hips and shoulders committed fade, it requires a lot of leg strength, requires a lot of ankle stability, knee stability, all those things that you can work on in the gym as a wide receiver and on the field. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver running the route correctly, but not a great job by committing to the break. Okay, so now this next example here is a wide receiver kind of running a wide stem hitch route. Right? So, or like a stop route, if you will, because I believe this is about 10 yards. I got to play this thing again real quick. But I want to talk to you guys about the top of the route break and how you guys can sell your routes longer. Very similar to what we just talked about. So let's play this full speed. He comes off the ball, kind of gives a little hesitation move. Yeah, it's about like a 10-yard stop. The DB's locking this thing up, right? So why is he locking it up? What could we do better as a wide receiver? So pre-snap, number one thing, we got to get in that good pre-snap process. We got to go through my checklist. list. So number one, it's man coverage, eyes are on me. Number two, he's shaded to the inside. Number three, he's maybe about a yard, maybe less off. So it's inside shade press coverage. I got to go run a stop route. So I want to try to threaten him to the inside, which is his leverage, and then I want to get out into the route. So he gives like a little hesitation move, which is kind of fine. I mean, as long as it holds that DB to the inside, I would maybe like him to attack a little more. Just when we push up vertical, that DB overcommits because he thinks he got beat. But at the end of the day, we're in the position to be able to get separation. He just doesn't get separation. Now, why is that? What gave away this route? And that was right before the break point. You see how his feet, he's trying to break at the 40. Watch what his feet start to do. He's coming off, good stride, good speed, and then you see how he starts to shorten his stride and slowly drop his hips. That is a dead indicator to this DB that a route is coming. I talk a lot about indicators with any wide receiver that I work with. And I mean, if you have worked with me, been to camps, trained with me in person, you know this is something that we spend a lot of time on. Probably 30 minutes every single session. How do we eliminate indicators? And the three indicators of a route are stride, speed, and body language. So if you're going up into a break and then you start to shorten your stride, DB's no longer thinking of fade, because who runs a fade with short, choppy steps? Number two, what guys will do is they'll raise up their chest. Who runs a fade running super tall with their chest? Not a lot of people. Then number three, slowing down. Who runs a fade half speed? Nobody does, because you get locked up every time. So if you can run hard, run in full stride, run full speed, all those things can get that DB to think fade. Now, when we are doing that, we need a violent drop of my hips, because that's the only way you're going to slow down while running full speed. It's a lot easier said than done. Hey, run full speed and cut. It's like, well, it's a lot harder than that. So when you go up into the break, we can't have this slow sink of my hips and these chops of my feet, because that just gives the DB more time. We have to self-fade, maintain my stride, which this wide receiver did not do, and we need a violent drop of my hips. We need that quick level change so the DB doesn't have time to react. Okay, fellas, so that's why this route didn't work. Again, right idea with the release, right idea with the stem. Just have to make sure we are a salesman. We are a salesman first anytime that I'm running routes. Play this again, full speed, right idea with the route, but we got to take care of top of the break in order to get separation. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you'd like a 4-month wide receiver gym workout schedule that you can follow on a day-to-day basis with rest days, conditioning days, and gym workouts, of course, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.